Welcome to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast with Robert Heyder. This is a no-fluff podcast where we dig deep into the journey of scaling your real estate investing and wholesaling business and discuss how to break into commercial real estate investing. All right, welcome everyone to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. Very, very exciting day here. We got Aaron Pimpis out of Florida. Really exciting guy. I've known him for a couple of years now. He's been in the virtual wholesaling space for at least 2 years. Had a little bit of real estate experience prior to that, but primarily came from the medical software sales, kind of private equity world, which is a really interesting kind of layer into his story. And then 9 months ago or so, he rolled out Launch Control, which is one of the kind of leading text marketing apps out there, text marketing softwares out there. I've just heard amazing things. We've just started kind of bridging into using it. We've been working with some of the other software services out there, but I'm very, very excited. But I've been talking to a handful of folks from other masterminds, other kind of markets, and I haven't heard a whole lot of people digging in too much. But I know that you're, especially with Launch right now, you're in a lot more stuff. So I was really interested to hear kind of what you're seeing out there. So that's impactful.
For us, we have a dedicated in-house cold caller, and he's pretty good. And he's been calling pretty targeted lists, successfully for the past couple of months. And he's been getting a lot of, and maybe it's Florida or whatever the case is, but people have changed their tone. People have gotten like very aggressively angry for no reason. You know what I mean? Like unless it's just the fact that they're like, it's cabin fever, they're locked up, et cetera.
Yeah.
That hasn't gone over well, but what has gone better is that more full-time with texting, and the texting responses are now better than ever because typically, and we provide all this training and Launch, like sales psychology, what list to use, what time to text. Like there's all the stuff that we've learned over the past year and a half is included with the software. It's not just the software. That's 50%. The sales training that we do is the other 50%. That's the secret sauce. But what's been working the best now, which is the most blown out list, is the, like absentee owner or out-of-state owner, high equity. Mm-hmm. Just like the one, they might be the buyer, maybe, if they own a couple rentals, they bought a couple recent ones. These are the ones that are looking to offload now. And that usually we have to go through a couple of smoke screens, right? A couple of barriers to break through a conversation. At this point, it's like, look, it's straight to the point. You're able to kind of just bypass all the BS, all the stuff that we typically train you on, like a psychology, how to turn people that are ghosting you or people that are saying like, I need $1 million for my house. We still turn all those around like discovery calls. It's just a matter of putting the effort into it. So we don't have VAs doing it. We basically do everything opposite of what any other text messaging platform does or teach. Maybe it has something to do with actually running a real operation. I don't know. But we basically take everything that we do here and kind of, just share it with the users. And there's a couple things with the articles I'm going to go through. But what we've been doing is, again, just highlighting, like, here are a couple things you can say. It's like, hey, does it come with your neighbor's house and the lot next across from it, right? I assume it's included. And they're like, well, of course not. You talk to SmartX, I can't, right? That person, I have to mirror it. And then you past, once or twice, a couple of exchanges, you're already in somewhat of a report stage because you mimic them, you mirror them. Mm-hmm. You're able to kind of go through whatever nonsense they put at you, right? And then you're starting a conversation. Whereas all the other systems basically have a VA on there and they go, no, delete, next. So all they're looking for is that, one guy is going to say yes. That's why our conversion rates are between this is the KPI for texting for those that don't know it, 1 to 3,000 texts to a deal typically, or to a contract, right? We're from all the users that switched over from all the other platforms that come over to us, because they're taking that broad RVM approach, which is just nonsense in my opinion. It's just like the dumbest thing you can do. It's like, anywhere between contract to 10,000 texts, right? Which is just, you're wasting data. You're going to run out of data. You're wasting money on skip tracing because the texting piece is cheap. The platform is not expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Skip tracing is where it adds up, and maybe the data. But what we're doing is we're just converting a lot more from a lot less by being smart about it and by opening up the conversations. The same way you would with somebody that's calling in from a mailer SEO, pay-per-click, whatever the marketing channel is you have to go through a couple of objections. Somebody's going to call you from a mailer, and they're like, "Well, what's your offer?" You're going to be like, "Oh, that's not a deal," like, right?
Yeah.
And, it's just some BS objection. You're like, "No, that's not a deal," right? It's the same concept, but it's been people, and we have to retrain people that have been stuck with that mindset. We have a specific section. We kind of created our own, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference is a good book for somebody to read that doesn't know anything about virtual wholesaling, just because it's all psychology negotiation, right? But we're applying that towards text. So we kind of created our own version of John Martinez for text only, right? And that's been huge because that literally is the 50% of the other side. But that's a long form answer to what is working for us best now. It's definitely going back to that kind of basic list that's been, I think, overused. We stopped using it. It performed for us the best in the beginning. It got oversaturated, but right now that's where it's at. High equity, out of state, or absentee.
Absolutely. Well, and I think the key is kind of the same general concept we were talking about before applies absolutely to this podcast right now with you, because you've got so much more data than everybody else. One, you're in the industry, and that's kind of where you started, and then you rolled out Launch Control. But at the same point now, with a couple hundred users, you're seeing so much information coming through that you can kind of aggregate and make sense of. And then now you're applying the psychology piece to it. That kind of, you're talking about I can't think of the acronym, but it's what neurological NLP. Yeah, exactly. That you're hitting on that. You're talking about some deep stuff. So once you kind of take all of that data, aggregate it, and apply some of these other concepts, that's just it's just huge.
Yeah.
And being that it's so real time with you and not something that you heard or someone else has heard 3 months ago, 4 months ago in a mastermind, in a changing time, you need data that's fast because it's day to day. If the hard money lenders kick back on tomorrow because there's something that comes up, maybe this, Hydra, whatever drug with Z-Pack works and it hits, not holding my breath, but hypothetically, if that works,
I'm so in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Then everyone's like, okay, yeah, let's go. Well, what we're talking about probably still applies to some degree, but it might not be the exact message that folks might need to hear,
Correct.
So it's just so day to day, real time, understanding and reevaluating what the status quo is, and then move. So that's, I think your opinion here matters a lot always, but even more right now because you're so deep in the trenches on this stuff.
Yeah. What we also start doing for all the launch users, and again, this is probably, I can sell this by itself for a lot more than launch is worth, but we're doing weekly parts. We're doing part 3 this week.
Yeah.
We'll basically into every single detail of our 100% virtual model, from scripts, comp plans, recorded calls. You can see here the first call, second call, follow up, right? We go into everything. I have Luke, who's the acquisition manager. We're basically going into all psychological aspects, right? The mindset, what you need to say, how you need to introduce something, how we pivot back. We'll cover some of these things now, but you can only cover so much in, an hour or half an hour that we have left. But that aspect, we added it for our users because, again, we're doing it, and it's literally, from what we're seeing, it's the number one, the thing that nobody understands or nobody's doing, right? So it's been, I think, really, really well received, but because it's literally, I'm giving away what I've learned probably from 4 masterminds, right? All that information compacted into a business that actually works.
Yeah.
But I think that's, for me, it's more about providing the value, because it's look, unless you adapt or, do it very quickly, it's going to be, you're going to be part of the 40% that's not going to be around about by the time the kids July.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if this continues on, you're going to see a huge amount of fallout, and you're absolutely right. The folks that make it are the ones that are going to figure this out quick in real time and not keep doing what they've always done. And the folks that are going to crush it are going to adapt, like you're mentioning.
Exactly.
No, and that's huge. I can tell you what, so we've got 4 acquisition guys and a VP of sales who manages over them, plus me and my business partner, John. We don't go out and on the first property visits very often anymore, but my VP of acquisitions, Doug, he listened in on the call that you had. I think it was last week. I was on there too, and he was blown away. He was like, "Oh my gosh, this is exactly what we need right now." We just can't get. We're only getting into maybe 15% of the houses. Because physically we in Missouri and St. Louis, we still can, but sometimes our sales folks don't want to. And what's that?
People don't want to, like, even if you can, they're like, dude, I don't know you from John. Like, I'm glad your name is Rob and it sounds good. But that's why we've been doing this again since the day one. And I think this is like maybe a huge give. And I'm more than happy to share the SOP that we have for this. But we use licensed inspectors, like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, right? So again, when you set it up, and again, ask me how I know, right? Like what Ken says is because we're doing it. Mm-hmm. So when you say it's like, hey, do you mind if we swing by and look at the house? They're like, no. Versus like, hey, we'll send a licensed state inspector in there that has an N95 mask, is, gloves, full protective gear, everything else. You can be outside the house, not going to touch anything. He's going to do his quick assessment of the property. And again, he's in and out. That carries a lot more credibility. And very few people are going to be like, look, I don't want a licensed state inspector in here, right? And again, we're like, look, we'll send you the report back to let you know, look, even if we don't move forward, right, well, you at least know kind of what's going on with the property. If you have some black mold you need to repair or remediate, whatever the case is, right? Right. You want to make sure there's no sinkholes or leaks in the roof that, stuff like that would really throw things off. It's like, I'm sure there isn't, right? We actually have one lady. It's like, no, there's actually a sinkhole in the backyard. We're like, what? You didn't tell us that?
Important.
Right. So, but the point is this, leveraging that, and then it's making like 3 or 4 calls, right, to inspectors. It's like, hey, this is what we're looking for, $150. Can you do this, yes or no? One of them is going to say yes. Probably all 3 of them, 4 of them are going to say yes now.
Right.
4-point inspection. So it's not the full holy shit mortgage inspection. Mm-hmm. It's enough to do, it's enough for you to know exactly what's going on with the property. Typically it's like 4 to 8 pages. And we have our own SOP. It's like, if you don't have this in there, please include all these items that we have listed. And we also show them how to take pictures, because what inspectors don't do well, take marketing pictures. You're going to get
terrible.
A crack, like every single crack of the house pointed to, but you're not going to know what the house looks like from the inside to outside, right? Mm-hmm. So we just provide that information. So please, when you're presented back, let us know what it looks like, et cetera, right? Or this is what we want to make sure we know what the house looks like. I know you're going to do your job on the inspection side. So we get that back. We'll typically go through and make sure it matches what they told us on the phone. A lot of times people just, lie. Or they'll forget something. It's like, look here, like, the roof's done, their AC is beat up, you have like black molds. Like, we have to account for these things. Yeah. We won't try to do it right then and there, but we'll try to make it evidence of them or tee it up for renegotiation if it's warranted. But at the same time, on the buy side, we already went through the benefits there. You're creating a lot of credibility. And you're taking, it's like a lot of people that, let's say it's a property you may not be able to get into a lot. It's not a vacant property. You may have 1 or 2 shots to get in there. That's it. Mm-hmm. By sending that report out, you're flushing out all the BS, all the people that probably would not have won the property in the first place. But there's that one guy that likes the neighborhood. He's like, thanks for sending it over to me. Now that I know, I still want it. That's the guy that's going there, right? So it's multiple benefits. Plus, you get a Dropbox with like 200 pictures. Like 10 are usable for marketing. But the rest of it's still helpful, right? Because you have that huge asset. You're differentiating yourself on both the A to B and the B to C side, right? So for us, that's been huge. What we typically do, just to maybe give like a quick overview of the wholesaling, over the virtual aspect that we do. Mm-hmm. So it's mostly overthought, but for people that are they're doing in-house appointments, right? It's literally like, it's creating rapport like you would. You can close your eyes. There's nobody in front of you. You can't read body language. You have their tone of the voice. That's pretty much it. But it's like, we always talk in our office, it's 80% rapport building, 20% shop talk, or about the offer, about whatever else. If you don't establish that, whatever they give you initially, it's like, what's going on, talk about how crazy things are now, how it's affecting them, that type of stuff, whatever you can hang on to. Look, if it's a sales guy, it's a sales rep, they'll know how to do that, right? Or they should. Sometimes people on the phone won't give that up. They'll get, they're a little bit, closed in or whatever. So, we'll switch over to is then like, it's like, what, that's fine. Let's kind of talk about the property, right? Let's kind of like, if you don't mind, give me a virtual walkthrough of the property. Like, paint me a picture with words. Like, what's behind you? What do you see? Like, what are you in the kitchen now? And it's like, if you had like $15,000 to spend, how would you spend on the property? Like, what would you like maybe repair? That's a
thing, right? Good question. I really like that.
That roof would go. The roof you just said that was fine. Okay, you would replace that. That's interesting.
Right.
But keep going, please. Go ahead. So they'll go through that. But because the people that are hard to open up first, if you pivot them to give me a virtual walk through your property, like just paint me a picture with words, right? Just say what I just said. They'll start talking, right? And as people start talking, psychologically, they're already opened up because they're the ones talking and the ones, the rapport building is going on organically because they have to give you the information. So if you can't get them on the dime initially on just conversation, after that you'll be able to really kind of jump into into different aspects about the property. It's like, oh man, wouldn't believe what we've seen. All the properties we've had, like hoarder houses, burnt out houses. So you started to talk and you started to build rapport that way, right? So different way to come at it. After that, typically we would kind of like run comps. It's like, let me get back to you like later today or tomorrow, depending what it is. And we'll present them with a range, kind of like where we're at.
Yeah.
We'll give them 140, 170 being like the lower end of it. Get a feel for them. Again, like all you have on your phone is your tonality. So you really have to listen into how people are responding. Are they locking up? Are they pausing? Did the tone of voice completely change, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, look, this is kind of preliminary stuff that I wanted to, again, at least run by you. Let me dial in the numbers exactly. Maybe we'll send the contract on the third. Like we try to do a 3-call close, which that doesn't always go that way. We have to follow up sometimes. Mm-hmm. But we've been utilizing now, and I've kind of talked to on a bunch of like webinars that have been recently, including for our users. We leverage articles to create scarcity, urgency, and credibility. So what we'll do is we'll kind of start talking about this in discovery call, and it's not me. This is what's going on. So look, my job, I know you watch the news, it's crazy. Like our job is to be informed of what's going on in the housing market, how it affects, home prices, et cetera. So what we'll do is look, for example, like Forbes is saying we might be in the housing bubble 2.0 is about to burst, right? On the other side, we are, I know Bloomberg, I don't know if you saw this article, but it says the jobless rate may soar up to 30%. That's over 50 million people unemployed. So what do you think would be the implications of that, right? This is a CNBC article that we sent over to them. Like sales could fall by 35% as coronavirus stalls spring housing market, et cetera. All these things have very, very, very dire implications on home prices. That's why you have the iBuyers are no longer buying, depending on which market you're in, if they were in there, right? Realtors cannot even do anything right now. They have to wrap up their current book of business. Ain't nobody doing virtual tours, or nobody's buying retail. Okay, so just put it that way. So what we try to do is become their trusted advisor, and we'll sprinkle these in different ways, Rob. So what we'll do is either mention these in conversation. We took all of our dead, nurture, and forgotten deals. I'll see if I can pull up an example. Texted them. And
hold on for a second here, Aaron. I think that I'm looking at something different than what you're talking about. What I'm looking at is it said 4 PPC leads at the top. It's yellow. Is that? I don't think that was the article page you were looking at. It looked like a info on properties you were working. Like one was Ohio, one was Illinois. And we can just cut this section out and start back over on the other. But is that okay? I can see it now. Yeah. That is. I was looking at some kind of yellow page. It looked like it was a lead sheet.
Oh yeah, sorry. I have 3 screens. So we can come back to that.
Well, yeah. But if you want to kind of jump where you were going, where you started with, if you want to kind of, just cut all that out and start here if you want. We can just start with, hey, you're leveraging articles to what it sounded like was educate, motivate, and build credibility. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of, we can just cut from right there if you want to start right there and then kind of run to these. Okay.
Yeah, so what we've done, this has been a huge something that's been, in terms of moving a needle, right? For either dead deals, active leads, nurtures, or anything else. We use articles to build credibility, scarcity, and basically urgency. And it's not us doing it, it's really the articles. And here's what I have. It's like credible sources, Bloomberg, CNBC, Forbes, right? Politico, whatever the case is, right? So it's like, we'll lace this into the conversations, or what we'll do is before we call them back, let's say if it's a follow-up call, it's like, hey, by the way, Rob, I'll give you a call at 4 p.m. like we discussed, to reconnect. I actually just wanted to shoot this over to you. I don't know if you saw this or not. Boom. We'll send them over, says something that's home sales could fall by 35%. What do you think is going on in that seller's head? Because they're watching the Costco toilet paper news, right? They're not watching this shit.
Right.
Not only are you educating them, you're becoming a voice of credibility, authority. You don't even have to say It's like we don't have a lot of time, but we kind of do. It's like, look, we may have one last shot of this.
Yeah.
The buyers are not buying. Realtors are basically dead in the water. But by utilizing things like this, let me pop over the article so you can at least get a glimpse. I mean, we're using credible sources to convey the information of like, this is what's going on, because they just simply are not aware. They're, have the head buried in the sand. We've utilized this, again, either on follow-up to tee it up for a second call or a third call for people who are ghosting us, that were complete dead in the water. It's like, hey, I wanted to let you know that we have, hey, not sure if you're aware, but my job is to at least kind of like, keep you informed of what's going on in the market. We may have one last shot at getting this done, but I wanted to send this article over to you to at least give you an idea of what's happening, right?
That's huge.
And what we may be in a couple months from now. And people, I have a couple of screenshots here from Luke, my acquisitions manager, and people immediately respond back. Either people who have been ghosting us or people that we tee up for a second or third call, so we don't have this drag out process.
Yeah.
Or they think they're getting retail, because the whole play here, Rob, is that they don't have the leverage anymore. They just don't know it. We have the leverage.
That's 100% it. And honestly, we've been talking about that at least for the last week, probably 10 days, because what always happens in every cycle, the seller, well, the buyer being us, and then the end buyer, whether it being a rental buyer or a hedge fund or private equity groups, they're almost always more informed and more educated on what's going on in the market and the economic condition than a seller. So to your point, and just to reiterate what you were getting at so much there for everyone listening, is like, you absolutely have to educate them on all the stuff that's going on. They know that the COVID virus is going on. They know this, but what they don't know are what the economic impacts are most of the time. So in
the next couple of months, right? Because this is a lagging indicator. Last time, the housing industry or the mortgage industry, if you want to call it that way, both were the coronavirus. That's where it stemmed from. In this case, it's a lagging indicator because it starts with jobs, equity markets, and then it trickles down all the way into where people start doing fire sales in their homes because they have no other option left, and they're going to liquidate to get the last $50K out of their house because that's all they can do. And there are going to be a lot of desperate people. As you and I already discussed, the A to B is going to get easier. But what we try to do with these, we've gone a shit ton of movement by utilizing these articles, either in new conversations, going to all of our dead deals, going into like in launch control, we have different dispositions, hot, warm, nurture, and drip. We go into all of our nurture ones. We'll be like, hey, I just want to follow up with you. I know these are crazy times. Wanted to at least let you know what's going on in the market, right? We're still looking to do one or two more properties potentially. Here's an article that kind of describes what we may be looking at. And then next thing you know, they're like, I'm available this afternoon.
Yeah.
I haven't responded to you in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know what I mean? So it doesn't work for everybody, right? I'm just want to make sure. But we've been able to shake out a lot of dead business or stale business or ghosting business by simply taking this approach. And don't just, send it. You have to tee it up with the message, right? Kind of like what I've been describing before. So this way you're able to, again, even if they don't sell now, if they are one of those stubborn people, and we do know the market will take a hit, in 30 days, when they're seeing this come to fruition, they'll be like, holy shit, Rob was right. That's the guy. And we'll probably have you still in the list and be following up. It's like, hey, man, I just want to follow up with you. It looks like the things are happening. They're like, that guy was right. You not only have credibility at that point, you have the business too.
Absolutely. Well, if you look at it on a broader scale, this is exactly what happened to the overall stock market, right? It's Absolutely. Like it drops down to 18. The Dow drops down to 18,000 3 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago. Yep. And now it's back up to 22, 23,000. Well, like actually times are for now, right? But generally speaking, times are worse now than they were 3 weeks ago. Everyone just didn't know. Everyone was just fearful of what was to come, right? Yep. So everyone just sold off. Well, like, okay, that's the same concept we're applying here. Like, hey, here are the news stories. Here's what's going on. Here's what everyone's talking about. Here's what's coming down the pipe. You can't just be sitting back and knowing. And it should prompt folks to sell more because that's just inherently what happens.
It's what dots for them. What my sales guys do is they'll paint the picture. It's like, look, I'm sure you hear when everything's going on. They'll know something about the Dow is bad or whatever's going on. But the jobs is where it's at because the jobs is what dictates basically the housing economy or the housing market, right?
Yeah.
We're continue losing jobs. And again, look, even if we slowly go back into things in a couple months from now. I don't think things will be the same. There's going to be a lot of jobs that are still lost in retail, service, and the airline industry. People will not be able to pay their mortgages, homes, short sales, fire sales, selling under the market value. It's all going to drive home prices down. And the sooner you can explain it to them now, the better you have an option of locking down a contract. We're doing everything for 60 days now. We're explaining, look, everything's taking a long time. Title, municipal searches actually are 30 days plus where we are. So that's the thing. And we're doing the same thing on the B2C side. So we're also putting that coronavirus and then them in there where it's like, look, what's inspection period starts when everything's lifted, that type of thing, just to protect us. Nobody's really questioning. It's like, yeah, I get it. But for the most part, if you have control, like this is kind of maybe, I know we're running kind of close to our time, but this is what I wanted to kind of point out. And this is one of my main things. Look, the main thing is going to be the B2C and keep them moving. Like if you have your marketing dialed in, don't stop marketing, just be smart about it. See where the highest multiple is. Where's the highest ROI? Where is the lowest cost? Follow through with that. And do not stop building your pipeline. You'll be able to, if you stack up 30, 40 deals, you'll be able to exit them all. It's just a question of when, right? But what may happen as we're talking, right, you may have this period of 30, 60 days where it's very hard to sign, right? So you need to have control of that contract, not only contractually. It's very, it's easy to get it locked up and that's it. But you also have the trust of the seller, because you're educating them through the whole process. And dude, like if the prices fall, which they probably will, it's like, look, I kind of told you this might happen. I'm not in control of it. I can't pay you the price now because what am I going to do? I can't take a loss. It doesn't make sense to me. Mm-hmm. You can barely get supplies. We're actually finishing a rehab on an owner finance property right now. That's supposed to be done this week. Mm-hmm. It's like bribe people at Home Depot to get a sink, right? It's just, it's insane. So even if that happens, right, you have an adult conversation with the seller and it's like, look, here's where we are. Here are the comparable sales. Here's a couple additional articles to keep you informed. We can move forward at this price because that's kind of where the market is. Because if we rehab it or we do it as a rental, I can't pay you extra $30,000 just because you're a nice person. It's just, This is just business. But I'm giving you the facts of what the current state is. You know what I mean? It's neither your fault or my fault that there's just short sales started or foreclosures or fire sales where people are just selling on the market. And that's it. But the main thing is that as long as you have control of the contract, you have the relationship still going on with the seller, you'll be able to exit a lot of these properties and, adjust for whatever correction that's going to be there. But you have to be ready. I talked to Ken about this. He doesn't agree with me. But you have to be ready not to maybe assign a bulk of them for maybe 30, 45 days, maybe 60 days. You may have a huge pipeline that you should be building, right? Be smart about your business, your expenses, et cetera. Continue marketing, but you will be able to exit all of these. Dude, when they all jump in, they all jump back in.
Right. It's becoming hot.
The buyers, it's going to be a feeding frenzy.
Yeah, and they're going to come in hot, and then there's going to be less inventory because relatively few folks are going to be stacking it up like you were just mentioning.
Right.
I mean, 60 days out with the Corona addendums is a lot like an option more than anything, right?
Correct.
So it's like, okay, well, you just want to have a bunch of options in place so that when it does let loosen, it's all going to come flooding in. And then those folks are going to need to buy to offset all the down months. So, so as a result, there's gonna be less supply and more demand. So prices are going to jump up on the B2C side, which should be great. If you can
sell it in the meantime, then sell it. I mean, look, if you find somebody, like we would sign a couple of contracts in like St. Pete, I would never take that property down, but it's some guy's neighborhood. It's his neighborhood. It wouldn't make a big spread on it, but it's like the guy wanted it. And I didn't think they would get rid of that property in the first place, but there's always going to be those. If you can get them, then get rid of them.
Well, that's it. I mean, in down times, $1 now is better than $2 tomorrow. So, keep going. Just turn 60 days or sooner closing dates like you're talking about. And it's like, okay, well, if you get the ability to assign it or get it sold, then take that quick buck and move on to the next one and double down on marketing on the front end. No, that's huge. And then it's market to market too, just like you mentioned, in Florida, because you're in Tampa, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you're in Tampa. So, I mean, like you mentioned, South Florida is getting crushed, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, all those areas. They have all those cruise ships coming in and just, international ports. It's just, they're getting hammered, West Coast and obviously New York, Northeast. Those places are going to be entirely different. There's just not a whole lot of business being going on at all. But, I can't speak for Tampa, but in Midwest, we're still moving stuff. they're saying that our kind of peak is still about 2 weeks out. I think it's like the 19th or 20th of April, somewhere in that ballpark, or 22nd. So we're a little ways out yet. But yeah, I mean, our biggest impact is going to be more on a national basis. Just consumer confidence, stock market, lenders having, liquidity in the market, more so than the actual impact of it versus other markets that are going to be just totally frozen.
Correct.
So,
yeah.
No, this was huge info. One thing, do you have an actual like coronavirus addendum, or did you just add some language to your contract? What did you do?
I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody has like their own, the Farbar version. I mean, you can actually Google those and whatever state you're in. So like, that's not like a secret, but we created our own from one of the masterminds that I'm in that we added to our own assignment contract. Yeah. Which gives us a lot more control in general. And it's, worded in obviously our favor, just like any proprietary contract is.
Sure.
But yeah, we haven't had objections to it or anything else.
That's great. That's a big piece right now. It's on a lot of folks, especially on the commercial world. We have some commercial deals going on. The force majeure piece is a big piece, but not for deals that you're putting under contract now. Yeah. The impact's already been there. It's like you can't lean on that now. If you were under contract from 2 months ago, you can kind of lean on that a little bit, but not so much. But so that's good to hear. Well, this has been just jam-packed with info. Greatly appreciate it. Anything closing? Any closing remarks you'd like to throw in here? Anything else?
I mean, I would just say, like the three things is just staying lean, as much as you can. Maybe now is a good time to reassess. If you're like, we had a ton of overhead, we're probably going to come out of this much leaner and meaner. But focusing on, like, if you don't have your KPIs dialed in, and it's not hard, just look at what your spend was, what came in, what's your multiple, what's your return, right? Focus on that. You may dial things down a little bit. I know people are getting rid of direct mail like crazy. I know you weren't really into that in the first place, but that's the biggest expense in most cases.
Right.
You can also change up the messaging, right? You can change up the messaging and say, whether it's your mail piece or whether it's PPC ad, or we do with, we're going to start doing with texting. It's like, hey, we just want to let you know, we actually can make an offer without seeing the house. We can buy a house virtually. Like, they're getting the yellow shock and awe letters, that kind of stuff. That's not really going to move the needle now. But even if you create a letter or a postcard that says, like, we buy houses virtually, or basically we can give you an offer without entering the property, call me to find out how, that's going to go a long way, right?
Oh, so it's just the message they need to hear, right? It's the copy at the right time.
Yeah. But best performing marketing channels, sticking with that. And again, launch has been going up in users because of, it is still the best cost per deal ratio. Going virtual, and again, we're basically we're providing that at launch, so that's just comes with the software. You get it in the entire business and the Dropbox.
That's awesome.
And then basically, doing, I think, what we focused on at the beginning of the call, which I got a lot of takeaways from, and what I'm going to do for the B2C side, and being able to exit intelligently, educate the buyers, find the high net worth individuals who probably do not want anything to do with equities at the moment, or they just don't have a stomach for it anymore.
Yep.
A lot of them cut it off at the 25% mark, whatever they lost. And they just don't have this risk appetite for, bouncing around anymore. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a double bottom here, but we'll see. I'm not a stock guy.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a very, very high likelihood chance of that, especially given that you're already seeing China like loosen up and then see the rate of the virus jump.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's a bear trap. There's a lot of people trying to capitalize on quick equity or whatever, or quick profits. But when the numbers are not reinstating as fast as assumed, or the unemployment continues to climb, I think that's the one thing we can definitely bet on, because there's going to be a lot of people that are never going to come back to business after a couple months. There were, even with PPP or SBA, I think a lot of people in the service industry will not be the same. I think when we come out of this as a country or as society in general, people will be more apprehensive to or people will just get used to doing shit at their house. We're just talking to Luke about this. If you realize how much you're spending on takeout, it was $2,000 a month, dude, you're probably going to tone that down. So my thought is that there's going to be a contraction in jobs in general, which translates to a correction, and kind of, it's a lagging indicator, but it will definitely get there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And we could probably have a whole another podcast on that.
Right.
I track the commercial field pretty well. We own a fair amount of commercial space, and we buy pretty good. We buy at the low end and don't really buy at the high price point assets. But I think office space is going to get crushed here in the near future. I think what's that?
It's people going to realize that they can function from home, or for the most part, or like they don't need to be in an office. It's going to be a very rude awakening on lease renewals and stuff like that. It's like, dude, why would we go back to a $15,000 a month office for a small business, right, or whatever?
Yeah,
we've been functioning virtually just fine. Okay, we don't even need that shit anymore. I mean, it would be cool, but maybe not as big or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, some folks will be cool working from home. There'll be more shared desks, things like that, to some degree, within a company. But while at the same point, it's kind of counterintuitive, but I think the co-working spaces are going to get hammered too, because I think folks' concern of just being around people and sharing too much is going to be a interesting factor as well.
Yeah. WeWork didn't get their next round of funding. Does not look good for them, dude.
No. SoftBank's
leveraged just like Grant is with a bunch of leases.
And Grant GC?
Yeah. I'm concerned about his 85% mark. I'm sure he'll renegotiate his debt because it is Fannie Freddie debt paper that he's got in those properties. So I'm
yeah. You're talking about multis, right?
Yeah.
I mean, oh man, that's going to be very, very interesting. Because the other piece, maybe we can jump on another call. But the note purchasing side is one of my kind of most exciting pieces. So the thing that I really, really get into from the finance side. We go and talk to banks and buy notes before they ever hit foreclosure, and then we run the asset through and determine kind of what the use is going to be and kind of where we're going to go. I think that's going to be a very big avenue because the courts, especially in judicial foreclosure states, are going to be so backed up because of this being shut down and then having this kind of halt on foreclosures for the time being. Like they're just going to be so backed up, and then the eviction courts are just going to be crazy. Well, banks might just be looking at, hey, let's just dump the debt.
Fire sale. Yep.
Yeah.
It's happening now in debt settlement. My buddy owns a debt settlement company.
Yeah.
They start settling. The average is 50 cents on a dollar type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They were settling at the beginning of March at 30 cents down to 20 cents, which is unheard of. They're trying to get ahead of the curve. So I'm pretty sure that will apply to the same kind of what you're saying. They'll want to move the paper.
Yeah. And most of the stuff that we've done in the past has been more on the local bank kind of recourse debt, personally guaranteed debt. But when you start looking at the non-recourse debt, I think there's some huge opportunities to your point. People have been buying these apartment deals on like the to come value. Like, hey, once we do the improvements, once we push rents, once we, they're going to get concessions and vacancy at the tail, especially the class A and B plus sector is going to get just smoked. So it's going to be really, really interesting. I think there's going to be big opportunities, but before folks like us can really jump on those opportunities, you got to figure out what the new norm is and right the ship and kind of get some level of consistency back home so you can go out and screen the environment and see where the big opportunity is.
There'll be a lot of opportunities, just a matter of, whether you're able to capitalize and, listening to podcasts like yours, which, I got takeaways from this, which I wasn't expecting, but I'm definitely going to implement them. Or you're just kind of buried your head in the sand doing the same shit you've been doing.
Yeah, which is a bad move.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you very much, Aaron. I greatly appreciate it. This was a really, really good one. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
All right, everyone. I hope you had a ton of big takeaways there. This was a really, really good one. Really, really good podcast we had. We talked in depth about the disposition side, the changes that have to be made. We talked about kind of how to tighten up your acquisition side, how to buy virtually, what are some of the big benefits, how to market towards sellers on the virtual purchasing, talking about, hey, we buy houses without actually seeing the house. We can buy virtually. We can keep your family safe, kind of going about it that way. He hit on some really good points when it talks to state licensed inspectors going in and viewing the homes, as well as many other just big pieces. The loosening up of the regulations with IRAs, being able to go out and actually invest in real estate with your IRA, which has always kind of been the case with self-directed IRAs, but now they're even loosening it up more with this whole stimulus package. So something to look into. We're going to post some documents and post some articles about that in the show notes here. So stay tuned, and we will talk to you guys in the next episode. Thanks.